Okay, welcome back. So today we're going to start building the Bigwig. We'll bring you over to the bench in a minute, but I just wanted to talk about another channel real quick. Phil from Poor Boys put up a post the other day about this channel and what happened. And just this morning I watched a video from Tomley talking about the same thing. RC Review, if you've never heard of RC Review, I don't know how long he's been going for, but he's been going for a very long time, quite a few years. He amassed over 100,000 subscribers. He had over 1,000 videos. Now, I do remember watching some of his videos in the past. To be honest, I can't recall subscribing to his channel, but I definitely have now. Because I think in one of his videos recently, he said June 7th of this year, his channel got cancelled by YouTube, by the sound of it, due to basically a technical error, something to do with an old out-of-date email address or something, which is, that's just no good. That's just bad luck, isn't it? But like I said, over 1,000 videos, over 100,000 subs, and this channel was this guy's sole income, right, basically. And one day he woke up and his channel was gone. So no revenue, no income, no nothing. He started a new channel since then, and what's it been, like 5 days? He's already got back up to around about 7,000 subs, which is awesome. Obviously, he's getting a lot of his subscribers from his other channel coming back and helping him out, and so we thought we'd help him out. And so as you know, our channel is only tiny in comparison to other channels, but if you've never heard of the channel RC Review, by the looks of it, he does mostly rock crawler style stuff. The namesake of the channel, RC Review, he reviews a lot of rock crawlers and other cars and stuff like that. But even if you don't like review videos, if you don't like rock crawling videos, just help the guy out and go and sub to his channel. We did. He's got, I think, 5 videos back up on his new channel now, maybe 6. We watched a couple of them, and he seems to know what he's talking about as far as crawling goes, and how things work and stuff like that. He's actually quite entertaining to listen to. So, yeah, go and give him a sub. Help him out. Let's try and get him back up to where he was before, so that he can keep making videos and making money. So, having said that, come over to the bench and let's get back to trying to build our channel. Okay, so let's get into this Bigwig build. I'm still getting over a cold. Winter has definitely hit around here, and it is, well, for us anyway, it's bloody freezing. And it always gets me. Every time the weather changes, I always get a bit of a head cold. But anyway, enough of that. This build is going to go over a fair few different videos. We're not going to get the build done in one video, because we do want to go into a bit of detail about this car. It's been a while since we've done an actual proper build series. So we're going to try and go into as much detail as we can about each step in the process. As you saw in the last video, we explained a little bit about how to read the actual manual and what most of it means. We'll explain more as we go in this build series. So step 1, we are assembling the gears, the differential gear and the spur gear for the rear differential. There's going to be a lot of cuts in this video because I'm coughing and sniffing and sneezing. Okay, so we have this drive gear here, and we need an 1150 bearing and an 850 bearing, something else very cool about this kit, they give you all of the bearings. Although none of them are rubber sealed bearings. They're all just shielded bearings. They're not rubber sealed. So the bearings for the out drives, although we're not going to run this car, we'll probably run it once, just so that I can say I've driven a Bigwig. But we might still replace the bearings in the drive hubs with sealed bearings, just in case. So our differential gear, we have these 3 bevel gears, let's call them star gears. They need to sit inside these recesses here. There needs to be 3 of them sitting inside there. That forms part of your actual differential. They do need to be greased. Now, the instructions say to grease the spindles on the gears themselves. Now, I am going to do a few things different to what the instructions say, but if you do follow the instructions as per the instructions, word for word, it'll still go together nice. You won't have any trouble. But what I like to do, that's a lot of grease. What I like to do is just put the grease into the hole that the part is actually going to sit into. So I've got grease in all of those holes there that are going to accept those bevel gears. And I need my rag, which is under here. This rag has seen probably the last 15 to 20 RC kits. So it's my favourite rag, my lucky rag. Okay, so by doing this, obviously I had to wipe my fingers with the grease on it, but now we're not handling these small parts covered in grease. So now we can just drop each part into this differential gear, making sure, you see the shape of these gears are they're a bevel, they're a cone. Okay, so the small side of the cone needs to face inwards, otherwise the differential won't work, but your side bevel gears just won't even fit. So there we go, that is step 1. Very simple. Step 2, we actually put the halves of the transmission together. Now we have this first one, this G4. Now you just need to look at the picture and orientate the part to make it look exactly the same as the picture. And if you follow it like that, you really can't go wrong. So we have this output shaft here, which drives your front, well, your propeller shaft for the front gearbox differential. Then we have this bevel gear here, which transfers the drive from your main differential gear, this one, to the propeller shaft for the front diff. So we need this plastic gear here, this H1, which came off a tree. And we need an 850 bearing, which just, that 850 bearing doesn't actually fit onto the gear itself, but I'll explain that in a minute. Then we have this BA15 1150, another 1150 bearing, but it's a little bit different. This is a thrust bearing. You see the balls are exposed in the middle there, so this is designed to take axial load this way, not radial load this way. So if we position these, the 850 bearing, the bevel gear, and the thrust bearing in this order, this shaft here, this BA7, which I think is this one, once that goes through the housing, that collects all of these parts together. Now there's another 1150 bearing here, which should just slide straight over that. And this A3 part, which is a plastic part, and nice pretty yellow too. They were blue on the boomerang, I believe. It may have been black. I can't remember. So you can see a big snap here on the instructions. So if you push that part on, I don't know if you heard it, but yeah, that part is on there, and your coat hanger wire propeller shaft just slides in there later on. Since the whole kit uses ball bearings, there's no need to use any grease on any of the bushings, because there are none. That one sits in there eventually, but what you'd actually need to do is you got to kind of see this thrust washer, thrust bearing I should say, will sit inside this gear here like this, and that will sit inside your casing there very loosely for now. And this 850 bearing, you see that a little rectangle slot in there, that 850 bearing will just drop straight in there. And then you need to hold your tongue right and just feed that shaft through. I'm sure there's easier ways to do this, but everything sort of needs to line up. And once it does, okay, so I'm just going to have a look at this bevel gear. So you need a positive drive somewhere here. So this bevel gear has a well, the shaft has a flat cut into it, and the bevel gear has a flat molded into it. So what needs to happen, so this is what's going to look like when it's all together in the housing. The whole thing's going to sit together like this. So you have your outer 1150 bearing, your thrust bearing, and your inner 850 bearing. So what you need to do is, like I said, just sit everything in here, and you need to line up that flat with the flat. And I hope you can see, line up both of those flats so they slide together, which they do, and they'll just all fall together just beautifully. And man, you got to love ball. It's kind of a waste not to run this car because it's fully ball raced. It's just going to be a pleasure to drive. I've heard they don't call it a big pig for nothing. It's a big, heavy car. I've no idea what they drive like, what they handle like. But we're going to have to give it a run. So they're telling you to grease the gears up now. So if you read back here, I said this in the previous video. Where does it say? Right. Apply grease to places shown by this mark, which is this one here. Then it says apply grease first, then assemble. Well, you can imagine if you greased up this gear first and then tried to put it in there and line up all your shafts, you can imagine you're just going to get grease everywhere. So assemble it first, and then you can just spin the gear and apply your grease, and you don't get grease everywhere. It's just a much cleaner way to do it. So now we have our outdrive, which goes through the casing here, which gets covered by another 1150 bearing and an E-clip. Now these E-clips do take a bit of practice, but really once you get used to it, they're not a big deal. So that bearing sits inside there actually nice and tight. That's nice. So this shaft has a groove just that side of the spline there, which is going to accept our 4mm E-clip. It's going to keep falling out until I actually get the E-clip on. This is where your needle nose pliers, or pointy nose pliers as we call them, this is where these come in handy. And of course my voice is going in, I'm really sorry, but you must soldier on, eh? So that E-clip just gets lined up with the groove on the shaft and pushed on. And what I like to do is turn the shaft while holding the E-clip. If it doesn't turn, then it's not on all the way. It's not on correctly. But that one is, so it's all good. Now this little shaft here is a 2mm shaft that runs between both outdrives and the differential itself. If it's the same, and it is, yes. So there's a hole in the outdrive that actually goes all the way through the outdrive. So until you actually get your dog bones in, that shaft is going to want to fall out all the time. So again, it's telling you to grease the shaft itself. Well, I'm going to apply grease to the hole in the outdrive and then assemble the rest of the parts. But first, it looks like we need to install this transfer gear, well, they're calling it the drive gear, with the bevel, with this A1 piece, which looks like it's this one. Again, pretty yellow. And because we're running bearings, there's no need for grease. And our 850 bearing fell out of this side, but that's okay. There's also a BA20, which is looks like a stainless tube that runs through the bearings and picks up on that A1 part. And that whole thing just slides in. Now it's not, there's a little a spigot here, I guess you call it. And it lands in a hole in the gearbox there. It's not telling you to grease it, but I think I am. It's plastic on plastic. I know there's a bearing there on the other side, but it really wouldn't hurt to just grease that up a bit. So it just falls into place like that. Again, they're telling you to grease up the gears before you put them in. I like to put them in first and then grease them up. It's just a lot cleaner that way. So our BA25, if we come over this side, BA25 has the bevel gears facing up with the spigot facing down. Now your BA26 has your bevel gears facing up, but your spigot facing up. So there is a difference between those two gears. So keep an eye on that when you're assembling it. So this is going to go over this drive cup. You notice I still haven't installed that 2mm rod yet. And I haven't greased up any of the gears yet. We can probably slide that rod in, just for now. Because with that grease in there, it's going to hold it. So we can put that aside and we can work on the other side of the transmission, which is basically exactly the same. We've got our drive cup, our 1150 bearing, and a 4mm E-clip. So same thing, just drop your E-clip in place, push it over to find the groove in the drive cup. Take your pliers. Now, if your pliers are magnetized, do try to demagnify them, because that can really become a pain with small parts like this. So that E-clip is on properly, and then we have our BA26, which has the internal spline, which goes onto the external spline on your drive cup. And then this is where your actual differential gear comes in. So before I do any of that, this is when I'm going to grease the bevel gears, because I can spin the bevel gear by spinning the drive cup. And just note the way your differential goes in. I don't know if it's really going to matter, but just do it the same way that the instructions tell you to do. So I'm just greasing up this spigot here a little bit. So the side of the differential that the bevel gears were installed from goes away from that side bevel gear. So that's sitting in there nicely like that. Now, when this marries up, that bevel gear there will hit these smaller bevel gears. This transfer gear will hit this larger gear here. So before we do that, let's grease up our gears. I generally don't spread the grease around the gear because once it starts running, the grease will spread out to where it needs to be anyway. I've been doing it this way for a long time, and I've pulled gearboxes apart after quite a few runs, and the grease really does just spread out everywhere. There's no dry spots in any of the gears. So now our two halves can come together, which is actually step 3. I'm getting ahead of myself. So step 3, we can put these two halves together, and we need a couple of parts. Thank you, Zach. So not many parts here. We've got this blue part that needs to go in between the top part of the gearbox here, and we've got this B4 part which needs to do the same. Now I actually struggled a bit doing this on the boomerang, so you'll have to bear with me if I take a bit of time. This just means you've got to hold everything together at the same time and make it all fit. So you can see we have a few different screws to use here. 3 exactly, which means a few. So we have a step screw, a self-tapping screw, and a machine screw, which accepts a M3 flange nut on the other side. Now before we do any of that, we have to line up these parts. So again, just position your parts exactly how they are in the cartoon there, in the picture. So this B4 part will sit here. Now there's a bit of a lip on that B4 part, and that's going to register with that hole right there. So it does actually kind of sit in place where it needs to be. This C6 part, the blue part, I might actually just trim that up a bit more. A little bit of a nub just left there. It's nice and smooth now. So take note of the direction of that part, and that's going to sit in that slot there. Now what you need to do here is kind of just stand everything up without having everything fall out. It's always a bit tricky. Okay, so I actually made a mistake, so I'm going to fix that right now. I didn't put any grease in this center hole for the for that 2mm rod, so just a little bit of grease there, and then once the rod goes through, it will draw all that grease through and go to exactly where it needs to be, and obviously everything falls out. So here's where I have a trick. So we have plastic parts that are a loose fit that needs to stay in place while you try and put things together. Now just a little bit of grease on that surface. We'll put a little bit there too. Just acts like a temporary glue so that we can tip that up and that part's not going to fall out anymore. We can do the same with that blue part. So now we should be able to stand everything up. We have to line up that 2mm rod and that tube with the other side of the other half of the gearbox here. Not too worried about the 2mm rod just yet, because that's just going to want to try to push itself out the other side. But you do need to line up that that tube. And of course my Other part has fallen out. So everything seems to be lining up. Just going to grab a hex drive there and push that 2mm rod back through. So all around the gearbox is lining up, and we've got a bit of a gap here with this part here. Now, should there be a gap? There we go. Okay, just took a little bit of force and everything clicked together just nicely. Our differential's moving with the out drive. So all we need to do is install our screws, and you just need to take note of which holes those screws go through. So this BA3, the 3x20 M3 machine screw, goes through this second hole there in the case, and we can just hold things together with our hands for now. Just screw on our M3 flange nut. Now we're going to leave that loose, and the next one we'll install our BA4, the 3x12 self-tapping screw, which needs to go through this hole directly behind that blue piece. And this is where we need our JIS driver. Again, leaving it loose. And then our screw pin through this part here. Which is interesting because there's a gap in between those two parts. So now that all those three are in, we can go around and tighten everything up. Now the large JIS screwdriver is a tight fit in some of these holes. So we just grab our smaller JIS driver and just carefully wind it in. Now this machine screw, this being a flange nut, they have they're serrated on the actual flange, so you can get away with just using the screw to tighten up. You don't need your box wrench to hold the nut, because the serrations actually bite into the plastic and holds itself still. So that is our rear gearbox complete. That is step 3 complete. Next step, which is going to be in the next video, we are going to install this beautiful special edition GT tuned Bigwig motor. We're going to use the bigger pinion, the 15 tooth. You do have options to buy a 16 tooth or a 17 tooth pinion. We're not going to bother with that. So that's the end of step 3. Next video, we're going to do these 2 steps and maybe even the step after that. So I told you it's going to be a series. Don't know how long this actual video is going to be, but hopefully not too long for you. But we are trying to go into a little bit more detail this time, so hopefully we're doing that, and hopefully it's not too boring for you. So thanks for watching, thanks for your support. See you in the next episode.